Hello, it's Siren. Welcome back. So, what really happened to Biggie Smalls? It's been over 25 years since the rapper was shot dead in Los Angeles, but conspiracy theories about his murder still persist. So, what did we learn from the recent documentary about the rapper's death? And is it possible that this case will ever be closed? Christopher George Latour Wallace, better known by his stage name, the Notorious B.I.G., was one of the most influential rappers of all time. Born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, Biggie rose to fame in the mid-90s with his hit singles Juicy and Big Papa. At the height of his career, Biggie was at the center of the East Coast and West Coast hip-hop rivalry that resulted in several high-profile murders. On March 9, 1997, Biggie was shot and killed in a drive-by shooting in Los Angeles. He was only 24 years old. In the years since his death, there have been countless theories about who ordered the hit and why. Was it the Blood Street Gang? Was it Tupac Shakur's former manager? Or was it an inside job orchestrated by Biggie's own label? In this video, we're going to break down everything we know so far about Biggie Smalls' death and see if any new revelations have come to light recently. Before we get started, remember to give us a thumbs up and subscribe for more crime content. Let's begin. On the night of March 9th, 1997, Biggie Smalls, also known as Big Papa or Puffy, was attending a Vibe magazine party in Los Angeles. He was accompanied by his friend and mentor Sean Combs, aka Diddy, and a number of other hip-hop industry bigwig. Among them were Lil' Kim, who would later become famous in her own right, as well as Mark Pitts and D. Smith. Around 12:30 at midnight, Biggie and his entourage left the party and got into two different SUVs to go to a recording studio in nearby Hollywood. But they were followed by two men in a Chevy Malibu. When the convoy arrived at the Peterson recording studio around 12:45, Biggie and his group got out of their vehicles and were met by Death Row Records CEO Suge Knight. The two exchanged pleasantries while the others went inside to record some music. But just as things were starting to heat up, gunshots rang out and Biggie crumpled to the ground mortally wounded. Knight, who had been grazed by one of the bullets, quickly ushered the surviving partygoers back into the trucks and drove them away from the scene. At the hospital, doctors discovered 4 bullet wounds in Biggie's body, one of which had punctured his lung. Despite their best efforts, Biggie was pronounced dead at 1:15. The news of his untimely demise sent shockwaves throughout the entertainment industry. Within hours, thousands of fans had gathered outside the hospital to pay tribute to their fallen idol. There were vigils, candlelight marches, even a basketball game. But amid the sea of grief, there was also anger. Many people believed that Biggie's murder was nothing more than a gang hit, a vicious attack carried out by the Blood Street Gang in retaliation for Tupac's death 6 months earlier. Others suspected foul play by rival rappers, specifically those affiliated with Death Row Records. After all, it was no secret that Suge Knight and Tupac were close friends. In fact, Tupac had even dedicated his last album to Knight, calling him his brother. Could it be a coincidence that Biggie was killed in front of Knight? The police were no closer to finding out who was responsible for Biggie's death. They didn't even have a motive. There was no evidence of a struggle. And Biggie wasn't known to be involved in any gang activity. Even his close friends and family members were baffled by the senseless killing. "He never did anything to anyone," said his mother, Valletta Wallace. "He didn't deserve this." As the investigation stalled, rumors began to spread that Biggie's murder was part of an elaborate plot hatched by Knight himself. According to this theory, Knight ordered the hit after falling in love with Biggie's girlfriend, Faith Evans. However, there is no evidence to support these claims, and many people close to the case dismiss them as ludicrous. Nevertheless, they continue to circulate online to this day. In the wake of the tragedy, authorities offered a $1 million reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of Biggie's killer. But it would be another 3 years before anyone was charged in connection with the case. On September 17th, 2000, a grand jury indicted two Compton residents, Dwayne Keith Davis and Orlando Anderson, in connection with Biggie's death. Both men were a member of the Blood Street Gang, and both had extensive criminal records. Davis was also known by the alias of Crazy Toes, and Anderson went by the name of Midget. It was alleged that Davis fired the fatal shots, while Anderson served as the getaway driver. Prosecutors claimed that the motive for the murder was gang rivalry, saying that the Bloods wanted to avenge the death of a member who was killed in a drive-by shooting just weeks before Biggie's murder. However, this theory was later disproven when it was revealed that the victim in that incident was not actually a Crip at all. In fact, he had been driving a Chevy Malibu, the same type of car used by the assassins in Biggie's murder. This led investigators to believe that the killing may have been a case of mistaken identity. Despite the lack of evidence, Davis and Anderson were convicted of murder and sentenced to 15 years to life in prison. However, they were released in 2022 after serving more than 2 decades behind bars. To this day, neither man has spoken publicly about his involvement in the case, if any. Meanwhile, many people have continued to question whether or not the real killers will ever be brought to justice. Enter the world of conspiracy theories. Over the years, there have been countless theories about who really killed Biggie and why. Some say it was Knight who ordered the hit because he was jealous of Biggie's relationship with Evans. Others blame rap journalist Matt Barnes, claiming that he was the middleman in a murder-for-hire plot orchestrated by Knight. Still, others believe that it was a case of mistaken identity, as we mentioned before. The truth is, nobody knows what really happened that night. But one thing is for sure, the official story doesn't add up. If the police are to be believed, then 2 random gang members just happened to stumble upon one of the biggest stars in hip-hop history and decided to kill him. But why? What possible motive could they have had? The answer, according to the police, is simple: gang rivalry. But as we already explained, this theory falls apart under even the slightest scrutiny. So what else could it be? Well, that's where things start to get murky. Because the reality is there are so many conflicting accounts of what happened that night, it's difficult to know what to believe. For example, some people claim that Biggie was killed on the orders of Tupac, who died 6 months earlier in a separate shooting. But if that's true, why would Tupac have waited so long to take his revenge? Others say that Biggie was killed by members of his own record label in order to collect on his life insurance policy. But if that's true, why would Bad Boy Records CEO Sean Combs, aka Puff Daddy, risk angering the hip-hop community by killing off one of its biggest stars? The problem is there's no clear answer, and without hard evidence, we may never know what really happened. One thing's for certain, though: the conspiracy theories surrounding Biggie's death are unlikely to go away anytime soon. And now, thanks to Netflix, they've taken on a whole new life. The streamer recently released a 6-episode documentary series called I Want Murder Charges. The series follows the tireless efforts of Biggie's mother, Valletta Wallace, who has spent the last 25 years trying to find out who ordered her son's hit and bring them to justice. While the series does a great job of chronicling the events leading up to Biggie's death, as well as the subsequent police investigation, it doesn't really offer any new revelations. That's because almost everything contained in the series has already been made public through court records, police reports, and witness statements. As a result, the series is more of a rehashing of old theories than an exploration of new ones. Nevertheless, it's still an entertaining watch, mainly because it gives us a rare glimpse into the inner workings of one of the most infamous murder investigations in history. We get to see how the police screwed up again and again, and we also get to hear from some of the key players involved in the case, including Biggie's former bodyguard, Damian Butler, and former LAPD detective, Russell Baker. However, Perhaps the most fascinating thing about the series is that it humanizes Biggie. We get to see him not as a larger-than-life rapper, but as a young man with hopes and dreams for the future. Through archival footage and interviews with those who knew him, we see Biggie as a loving son, a devoted father, and a loyal friend. We also see him as a talented rapper who was at the top of his game when he was killed. All in all, I Want Murder Charges is a must-watch for anyone interested in the case. It won't provide you with any new answers, but it will give you a fresh perspective on one of the most talked about murders of all time. So, what do you think? Is it possible that the case will ever be closed? Do you think we'll ever know what really happened to Biggie Smalls? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below and subscribe for more videos just like this one. It also helps out a lot. As always, thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.